Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Right Media Group Chronicles. Today, we've got Eddie Egesi, founder of Apricot Branding, a strategic branding firm that works with health and wellness visionaries who want to stop looking like everyone else. Eddie's got a contrarian take on local relevance that most agencies ignore, and he's built a business on partnerships and clarity instead of chasing vanity metrics. Eddie, excited to have you on the show.
Great. Thanks for having me.
Eddie, you rebranded during the pandemic when everyone else was in survival mode. So that's either
Yeah.
brilliant or insane. So which one was it?
Yeah, I think it was a really it's more opportunistic, I would say. So I just saw it as an opportunity because, it was a time when things seemed to shut down, everyone was at home. So that's a really great time to start, just planning as to like, when, where to next.
Was there
Yeah.
like a specific moment where you thought, if I don't do this now, I never will?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I feel like these are like the best times for planning because usually when you have a business, you don't really have that much time. So I feel like that was like a really good time, to like just work on planning.
Apricot Branding specifically, was it an agency that was founded before COVID? I'm just trying to understand sort of the history a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So I actually came from a creative background. So it started off as a design company, just doing design work for local businesses. So I used to collaborate a lot with like other marketing firms and like other related businesses like printing companies, marketing companies. So I also did some studies on my own, try to learn a little bit more about branding and like where it could potentially go. So that's usually how I started. I come from that, design background, creative background. And then over time, I just expanded into branding, based on my experiences from the earlier work as a freelancer. So what I did was I just took the same experience and the network that I had built over the years. And then I was then able to rebrand it as Apricot Branding. So Apricot Branding, the new purpose is to empower visionary companies to amplify the impact and maximize the potential of their brands. So that's pretty much my main focus. Yeah, because I feel like branding really has a lot of potential in terms of how it could really help take businesses to the next level.
It seems like you're a niche within a niche. So you niche down vertically and horizontally. So within who you work with and what type of service you provide. Did you stumble in it, or did you see the market opportunity and position yourself there?
Yeah, I feel like sometimes you don't always choose your niche. Sometimes your niche kind of chooses you. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, tell me how it chose you then. Is there a story there?
Yeah, it's kind of just where the opportunity is, right? Just keep an eye open for where the opportunity is. So, like when I used to work with businesses, I noticed that a lot of the issues that they had were mostly branding related issues. Okay. And I also did a lot of work for businesses in the health and wellness space, as well as related industries like fitness and self care. So, those are like the main industries that I was working with at first. And because these are industries where connection matters most and trust matters most. So that's where branding really becomes critical, when really building that connection over time.
If you restarted Apricot Branding tomorrow in a totally different industry, would you deliberately pick a niche, or just let it happen again naturally?
Okay. Yeah, I would probably just let it happen naturally because that's how I tend to do things. I tend to be very organic. Yeah. Yeah, because sometimes when you pick a niche on your own, even when you do pick a niche, usually when people pick a niche, it's usually informed by their past experiences still. So in a way, they think that they're choosing your niche, but your niche is really choosing them. It's really based on their own past experiences and where they saw the most opportunity. So a lot of times we think we choose our niche, but it really chooses us. Yeah.
From I never thought about it from that perspective, but I work with marketing agents, but it's because I've had previous experience as a marketing agency. So it's just natural, isn't it? But you have all this advantage to use it, towards the offers and service you create because you know the struggles
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
with like current state and looking at what's working and what's sort of difficult. Most branding agencies are trying to be everything to everyone. So you went the opposite direction, hyper focus on health and wellness, and that takes a lot of gut. Like, what made you confident enough to niche down that hard and be like, yeah, it's gonna work?
Yeah, sure. So niching down is mostly about just trying to figure out like where do I see the most opportunity for my business based on my strengths, based on what my strengths are, and based on where the demand is. Okay, so when you look at it that way, it becomes easier to niche down and it starts to make more sense as to why you should niche down. Because if you're just like doing everything to everyone, then what happens is that you end up being very, what's the word? You don't have a reputation in a specific area because your niche is basically just what you do best. It's just more about building a strong reputation in a specific area. Like, what's your strengths? What do you do better than everyone else? So that's what I found. That's what I found over time was the niche. Yeah.
And did you lose clients when you repositioned, or did it immediately start attracting better ones?
Yeah, I would say that. So, like I said, so the niche was chosen based on where my strengths were, based on where the demand was. So I kind of already had the clients already. And the way businesses work is a lot of businesses they tend to network with other people in their industry. So that's another benefit of having your niche is that if you focus on a specific industry, then you get referrals from other people within that same industry as well and related industries. Yeah.
It's like a natural networking system going on there because you already. And actually, what's funny enough, Eddie, is like even if you do something nice or a free value with a health and wellness, or even the fact that you partnered up with them and the fact that it's reshared on LinkedIn, most of the time, I bet even happens to you. You're connected with marketing agencies because, well, you are in a sort marketing agent, but you focus on the branding side. So it's the same on their network. And it's just that natural referral system going out and expanding.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's just good to have that clear niche, that area where you do best. So that because that's where your brand comes to mind, right? That's when your name comes to mind when you're thinking about like who's the best person for me to refer this project to. Yeah.
So you niched down 5 years ago or 6 years ago now during COVID then.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
A lot of marketing agencies or, people that wanna stand out, entrepreneurs, they're listening to this and they might be in the same position you were. What position were you in before you were like, "I gotta niche down. I'm a generalist. I'm trying to please everyone."
Okay. Yeah, sure. Before I rebranded during the pandemic, so it was more of just a design company, just doing designs for businesses, in general. And then so when I first started, I was just working with any business. Okay. So usually when you first start, you don't have that many clients. You're trying to figure out what you do best and where the opportunities are. Okay, so when I first started, I was just doing projects for anyone. And then based on that, I kind of determined this is where I do my best work. This is where the
Mm.
client is most happy. This is where I see the opportunity. So based on that, I now use that to determine the right niche, right? The right area of focus where I need to put more effort into. Yeah, because you don't want years to go by and you still don't have an area of focus.
I agree with you there, and more people are coming to the realization of that. There's some that are still hard set on, "I wanna be a journalist," but it's like places like video production. Is it okay to be a journalist in those sort of areas, right? Because they say it keeps them creative. So I wonder, I'm still on the verge with that one.
Yeah, a lot of people they're generalists, but they're actually but if you pay attention to them, you would see that they actually do their best work in specific areas and specific industries. So they think that they're generalists, but they're really not. They're just pushing everything, but they probably have their best work in specific areas because you can't really be like our brains just aren't wired that way. We just can't multitask like that. We have to have an area of focus. That's just how we think. Yeah.
So talking about some of the partnerships, you're very big on partnerships. So can you give me a real example? What's a partnership that actually moved the needle for Apricot and not just a nice to have relationship because we have a lot of those, right?
Yeah, sure. So one thing that I always emphasize a lot is the value of collaboration. Because entrepreneurship is a team sport. Okay. So when you collaborate with other people, so ideally it's good to always collaborate with other people who share the same audiences, who have a similar vision and mission, and who share the same values. So one thing that was critical for me in my business was in partnering with people who are trying to serve the same audiences. So for example, I would do a lot of partnerships with like local chamber of commerce, things like that. And then that would help me to reach more businesses in the local area and also provide more value to your audience at the same time.
And what does that typical partnership look like? Do you guys sort of help each other? So you specialize in branding, they specialize in something else. I'm just wondering the context of that.
Yeah, there are so many ways to partner. It's just a matter of just being
Yeah.
creative. But you'll be amazed at who would agree to partner with you. But yeah, there are so many ways that you could partner. But one way that I partnered with the local chambers was through events.
Mm-hmm.
Through events, because that's a really powerful way to connect with audiences. So just partnering with the local chambers to do events. And then, I would help with some of their marketing as well. I would leverage my brand as well, my audience. And then it's mutually beneficial, right? Because I'm adding value to their audience. And it also helps to me to build credibility as well and really reach more prospects as well.
Yeah, of course. And how do you vet partnerships personally? Like, and what red flags do you look out for that you need to catch early on?
Okay, yeah, sure. So when it comes to vetting partnerships, I usually consider like first and foremost, like are we serving the same audience? Is there an audience alignment between me and this group, whether it's a business or an organization? So there has to be an audience alignment and there has to be some kind of alignment in terms of our vision and our mission, what we're trying to do. Okay, so if they can tick those two boxes, then I feel like that's definitely like a good first step to determine if it's going to be a good partnership and also beneficial, right? It's not because it's not just about me, it also has to benefit them. So I'm also thinking of like, how can I benefit their audience as well, their listeners? Yeah. So it could be partnerships through events, it could be partnerships through projects, it could be partnerships through referrals. Yeah, it really varies.
You have built Apricot largely on partnerships and referrals. But here's the thing, like you can't really scale referrals. We've been talking about it on probably most of our episodes. Does that like ever keep you up at night?
Well, like the thing about Apricot branding is it's existed for like I would say so I rebranded around the pandemic, so that's like 2022. Referrals are definitely a good base in the early days when the first years when you're first getting started. Because when you're first starting in your business, no one really knows who you are. Okay. So it's very hard and expensive to market to strangers, especially when there are other people. Is very competitive. So in the
Mm.
early days, when you're first getting started, your partnerships and your relationships will really help to give you that baseline. That from there you have the capital that you can then build off of, and then you can now start to invest in like other more predictable approaches to marketing your business. Yeah, exactly.
So if referrals sort of dried up for you like tomorrow, what is your backup plan? It's nice that you have that partnerships, but there's sort of that approach where you put all your eggs in one basket, isn't it?
Well, yeah, yeah, I do have other channels as well. It's just that during the early days, like those referrals, those relationships were what really helped me in the early days. And then from there, I then expanded into other channels like my email list, my social media audience, things like that. My events. I do lots of events as well.
Mm.
That also really helps to, bring more clients in. So there's a lot that I do as well. And I'm still, looking at other avenues as well. Exactly. Yeah.
Some of the topics we discussed previously, Eddie, when we reconnected, is you said local trust versus global brand. So you're saying most global brands don't have a local trust. That's a controversial take. Can you give me an example of a big brand that's failing at this? Obviously, don't mention names, but maybe their journey, because you're saying they have a global brand, but they don't have local trust, which you say is very important and key.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So when I say that, I'm not speaking in like a general sense. I'm speaking more in terms of like they don't have local trust in all communities. Maybe some communities, but a lot of communities are actually very skeptical about these brands and actually some of them might even hate these brands as well.
Oof.
I don't want to call any names, but there was
Yeah.
one brand that expanded globally, but like one key barrier to their growth was that a lot of communities felt like they weren't in tune with the local culture. Because when you're expanding globally, you have to understand the culture and the lifestyle of the different communities that you're trying to expand into, or else you're going to have some really angry people who feel like you're disrupting their lifestyle. So that was one of the key barriers, was that they were expanding into areas and then people felt like they were kind of ripping at the soul of the community, the culture of the community. You didn't trust. A lot of people already don't trust corporations, so that's why that local relevance is so critical. Making sure that you have that local relevance and that you're able to build that local trust with that, in that area. Yeah.
So, if you were advising a global brand tomorrow, what's the first thing you'd fix, the first steps you'd take?
Okay, yeah, sure. So when advising a global brand, so By that question, are you referring to like a global brand that's trying to build local relevance or just in general?
Well, it's sort of in general, but it's building on top of what you already said, right? So you said they don't have the local relevant.
Relevance. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. So in terms of local relevance, right, it's really crucial for global brands to really make sure that they are aligned, like they have like a deep understanding of the culture and lifestyle of the community they're trying to get into. And that they really really familiarize themselves. So some of them actually spend millions of dollars on this just to understand like how their brand will be perceived across different cultures, because one culture may perceive your brand as trustworthy, but another culture may perceive your brand as it may have very negative perceptions about who you are and what you're all about. So that's why some companies actually spend millions on this just to understand how their brand will be perceived across cultures. And the companies, they know this, a lot of them, they know this already. At least they should know this.
Yeah. You use AI for ideation, but you're careful not to depend on it. Where do you think most agencies are screwing up with AI right now?
So when it comes to using AI, one thing that I always, not just using AI, but just in general, right? So one thing that I value a lot in my business is like creativity, empathy, and craftsmanship. So making sure that things are very well thought out. So I approach AI as more of a collaboration tool in which it's just a good way to validate ideas, bounce ideas off. So I feel like a lot of agencies, they treat AI as kind of like a digital servant that just does everything. But that doesn't really, so they approach it as kind of like a digital servant where it just does everything. It just spits out everything. But the best use of AI is mostly intended to complement what you already know and what you're already doing. Okay. It's just to help you to amplify what you're already doing and make it better so that you're better at that, at what you're already
Yeah.
doing. So I usually
Yeah.
don't recommend just being too dependent on AI. Even me, from my usage, there have been several times in which AI was wrong. And I could have actually been in trouble if I just followed it blindly. So AI isn't always correct. It's not always correct. It's not always accurate. It's always good when you already it's just to complement what you already know, what you're already doing. Okay. So that's usually
You
how I
got me
approach it.
you got me very curious there. You said you used AI. You could have gotten in trouble if you took away what it gave you, but luckily you had the knowledge behind it. Can you give me that example?
I loosely remember, like, so for example, like I said earlier, one of the key industries that I work in was like health and wellness. And one thing about these industries is that like mistakes aren't very acceptable, right? So if you're in the health and wellness space and you're saying things that aren't accurate or that aren't really correct, then that could really put your brand in a lot of trouble. That could really hurt your credibility as well. Yeah, but because I had experience in that space, I was able to assess the information that was provided and really do some further validation, take that extra step. But most people, they will just copy and paste whatever it says, but they don't really take the time to really read through it in detail to make sure that, what it's providing is really, number one, it has to be tailored to the brand. It has to be accurate. And also it has to feel authentic, because people, they can tell if what you're providing is all AI generated. They can tell if it feels robotic. So it needs to have that human elements to it. Yeah.
Of course. And do you think AI will replace brand strategies in the next 5 years, or do you think it's just an overhype?
Yeah, I feel like it's an overhype. I feel like what AI is going to replace is mediocrity. So I
Mm.
feel like if you're really good at what you're doing, and if your customer values people who are really good at what they do and who put lots of effort into it, then I feel like they wouldn't feel the need to just replace it with AI. So it's mostly for people who really don't really value quality, or people who they don't really they're not as good as they think.
Mhm.
They end up being in a situation in which their work is being replaced with AI, because it's very easy to stand out from AI. So I feel like people, they shouldn't feel like it's too threatening. Yeah, so that's my take on that. Yeah.
Yeah. I can't wait to dive into this next subject because there's a bit of controversial thinking there. So marketing versus branding, people confuse them constantly. What is the biggest misconception you hear from clients when they first come to you?
Huh? Yeah, sure. So usually when people think of marketing, what usually comes to mind is just, just posting on social media and then hoping that someone clicks. And then when people think of branding, what usually comes to mind is just designing a logo and then just printing it everywhere. But that's not really how that's not really how real agencies think and operate. That's not how real branding works and how real marketing works. So one analogy that I use to help people understand like branding and marketing is that your marketing is kind of like a machine, okay, or an instrument. So it's the mechanism that you use to get the word out about your business. Is how you take people from awareness to clients. Okay. So it's a system that you use to take them on that journey from awareness to client. So your marketing is kind of like a system. It's a machine. So some people, they think that they just need a website alone or they just need a social media page, but that's not really how it works. So your website is not alone to support conversions. You need a system. You need different elements working together to keep your customers coming in, to keep your company relevant in the marketplace. Okay, so your marketing is more of an instrument that you use to get the word out, but the branding is more of the actual melody that attracts people to your business. Okay, so your brand is more focused on the experience. It's more about how people feel about your business and the meaning that they attach to it. So if marketing was the instrument, then branding would be the melody. It's the melody that attracts people to your business. And the marketing is a system of how you get the melody out there. Okay.
That's a beautiful analogy you've come up with there.
With marketing, it doesn't have to feel overwhelming. It doesn't have to feel too abstract. So that's what I use to help people understand it. Yeah.
Do you have any recent story you've got in health and wellness?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the clients that I recently worked with, I can't really mention the name of the business,
Of course,
but
yeah.
it was like a local, kind of like a lactation consultant. So she
Mm.
deals with women who are who are having a baby. They're trying to learn more about breastfeeding, things like that. So it's a lactation consulting business. So like I said, so one thing about the industry that they're in is that one thing that's really paramount is that it has to really have that trust, because when you're hiring a lactation consultant or any business of that nature, it's really important to feel like you can trust this person, because it's a very sensitive topic. It's a very sensitive topic that you have to deal with. But one key challenge that the business had was that her current brand, it was kind of upside down, for lack of a better term. Okay, so it didn't really reflect the years in business. It didn't reflect the experience that customers have through the services. The sales process wasn't very clear. So there were so many issues that were uncovered during the initial consultation phase. Okay, so what we did was we had to strategize on a complete overhaul of the brand. Okay, so we had to refine the marketing message, gain more clarity on the target audience, and then we had to do a complete redesign, because one thing that I always emphasize is the value of designs. Your brand's design, it needs to really it needs to create the right perception of the business and who you are as a company. So the last brand didn't really do that. It was kind of all over the place in terms of how it looked. So first we had to gain more clarity on who we're talking to, and how do we want to be perceived in the marketplace? What are the key values that set the business apart? And then all of these things had to be communicated through the visual design. So this led to a complete redesign of the brand, of the website, with a new look and feel that was much cleaner, much more modern, and it needs to reflect the calmness, the soothing experience of the service. So all of these things had to be reflected through the brand. Okay, and then once we did the redesign, she received lots of positive feedback from clients. One key to the brand overhaul was that we had to clarify the sales process, because one thing that people don't understand is how the branding translates into sales and how it aligns with the sales process. And I've done this more than once. I've had situations in which businesses, especially practitioners, they didn't really have a clear sales process, and this was causing them to lose leads. So after we did the redesign, we were able to clarify the sales process and streamline the process. And then after we did the complete redesign, she was really excited about it. She said it was one of the best investments she's made in her business. And then we had like an ongoing content strategy to further build that trust, because she had no online presence, she had no credibility in the marketplace. So we executed like a content strategy to grow her search presence through content SEO. And then over time, we were able to grow her organic traffic by over 1,000% by the second year. And this led to more leads and like a steady growing email list as well. And then what else? Like her business, it was also getting picked up by like bigger brands as well. Because when you have
Okay.
bigger brands quoting you, linking to you, that also helps to really improve your credibility. So I would say that her business, went from a business that no one knew about to a business that had much more credibility, much more people were quoting her, were visiting the site. Okay, so it had like a much stronger brand presence in the search engines. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great before and after story there. One thing you mentioned is about the sales process. You said you're very keen on, and that's something you've done before. What is the clear sales process, a sales funnel? Do you have any steps for anyone out there who's trying to improve their sales, any business, any agency owner even?
Yeah, it really depends on the business and the industry. Because different businesses have different expectations and different sales process. So different sales processes. So when it comes to your sales process, it has to be as clear as possible. There can't be any ambiguity, right? They should have a clear picture in their mind of what to expect. Okay. If they have questions, then in all likelihood, they're not going to ask you. They're just going to say no. Okay, because the way people think is that they jump to false conclusions, based on their past experiences, what someone else said. So your sales process, you have to be crystal clear and you have to be very intentional about how you want to be perceived in the marketplace and the value that you're offering and why they should choose you. And like the process, like what happens next. So all these things need to be very clarified upfront. And there are also other technical nuances like a lot of people in the health and wellness space, like some of them deal with like other technical nuances, like insurance, things like that. So all these things also have to be clarified as well. Yeah.
Yeah, Eddie, let's do something fun. Let's do a few rapid fire questions I got for you where I'd like you to answer in one sentence or less. Okay?
Okay. Sure.
Are you up for the challenge?
Yeah, sure. Sure.
Okay. So if you could only keep one client acquisition channel, whether it's referrals, partnerships, or webinars, which one and why?
So my approach to marketing, I don't really believe in one channel, because I see it as a combination of different channels working together. So if I just keep one channel, I feel like my marketing is broken. So that's a little bit hard to answer. Because
Mm.
usually when people contact me, it's usually a combination of different channels. So maybe they went to one of my events, then they started following me on social media, then maybe they saw me in person or they came across some of my ads. So it's usually a combination of different things. So I feel like marketing is becoming much more complex. So we're switching to a more omni-channel approach where just one channel isn't really adequate anymore. You have to use they have pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah, you sort of denied my question, but you're right. You need to have an omni-channel approach because of the amount of touch points that you need to have before
Yeah.
it ever becomes a sale or discussions of a sale.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
So, a controversial opinion: most small businesses don't need a rebrand; they need better sales skills. Agree or disagree?
Okay, I didn't hear you.
Most small businesses don't need a rebrand; they need a better sales skills. Do you agree or disagree?
I wouldn't say most. Some of them don't, but I wouldn't say most of them don't need a rebrand. It really depends on the kind of business that you have. So rebrands are mostly for businesses who are trying to get to that next level, right? They're trying to expand into that next level. They're trying to expand into new markets. They're trying to go bigger. Okay. Not all businesses are trying to, go bigger. They're not trying to expand. Some businesses are smaller business, right? They just want customers every now and then. But some businesses, they're trying to leave a legacy. They want to make sure that their brand stays relevant and impactful for years to come. So if that's the kind of business you have, then you absolutely need a rebrand. But yeah, that's what I would say.
And what about sales skills? Do you feel like small businesses need better sales skills?
The problem is that they're trying to do things that are outside of their areas of expertise. Because most small businesses, they're not salespeople, right? They're people that specialize in certain industries. Some of them are lawyers, some of them are health and wellness. So I would say leave the sales to the experts. It's not about trying to like juggle different, it's more about, I would say just hire the experts. You need to hire the right marketing agency, the right salespeople, and then yeah, everything just works together. So it's not about the business owner trying to, yeah, trying to like understand sales. It's a good skill to have, but you
I think the trouble with small businesses, it's nice to hire that expert in that, an expert in sales, an expert in marketing, but it's cost money. Small businesses don't have money, so they tend to wear
Mhm.
many hats, as you may know as well. Starting an agency ages ago. Eddie, if people wanted to connect with you, find out more about your services or what you're doing, where should they look?
Yeah, so anyone can visit my website, apricotbranding.com. You can see some examples of case studies, and you can also access the brand clarity assessment. So, the brand clarity assessment is a free tool that allows business owners and entrepreneurs to assess the level of clarity that their brand has across four key areas, okay, of their brand. And with this
Mhm.
assessment, you are provided with a brand clarity assessment score that you could use as a benchmark to measure the future progress that you're making over time. Okay. So they can
Alright.
access their brand clarity assessments, they give you some case studies and some of the content that I have available.
So if anyone's interested, if you go to Eddie's website, we'll make sure all the links are dropped down below. And Eddie, thank you for spending an hour with me and sharing your value and your knowledge and putting some golden nuggets of wisdom out there.
Sure, it's been a pleasure.